There we go. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think I was pretty much done with just making the statement about the women in his films, that he was a wonderful director of women, and he doesn't really get acknowledged for that. So anyway,
Why
um,
do you think he got those kind of assignments? The sort of those some of those female driven films like Frisco Jenny and Night Nurse. Why do you think he was getting those films?
well, I think they tried him on stuff like Night Nurse, and he does a great job with Stanwyck and Joan Blondell, in the film, and they just have this great relationship. I mean, I almost think that, if they had made Thelma and Louise about 50 years earlier,
Yeah,
Stanwyck and Joan Blondell would have been a great,
that would have been great.
would have been great in those characters. So I think they said, oh wow, this guy can really, work well with women. And he loved Stanwyck. He just absolutely adored working with her, and they became great friends, and um, uh, all of that. And but and then he did Safe in Hell, and then he started doing the films with Ruth Chatterton, and he kept making these women's films. And then he did get to a point after a while where he said, like, give me something different. He was an aviator during World War I, and had this record. He had shot down German planes and all of that. And he said, I want to make more aviation films and things like. And they said, oh no, you're so good doing this. We're going to keep you doing this.
Right.
And it's interesting. There's a story where he had a notorious temper, and he would often get into trouble with studio executives and stuff like that. And he really wanted to do more films that he wanted to do. He wanted to do a wider variety of films. Um, and so he and Loretta Young were both on the outs with Warner's executives. And Midnight Mary was kind of a punishment. They were flown
Mm.
out to the MGM B movie unit, and so it was a loan out. And it's an interesting film because you really get some of the best of Warner Brothers mixed in with some of the best of MGM. I mean, you get a lot of the glamour, these incredible gowns that Loretta Young is wearing during the films and things like
Yeah.
are just pure MGM. But at the same time, you're getting that like gritty, you know, hard as nails sort of Warner Brothers sensibility that MGM isn't really known for either. So it was done while he was working for Warner Brothers, but on loan for MGM as a punishment. um, I think is really funny because it's a
Yeah.
great, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting that so many of these films, like you write about the fact that a lot of them got mixed reviews. What is it today that what is it about this time like now like that we look back on these films as many of them being so great? I mean, what do you think? Why do you think critics was some of them just too harsh, too hard for people at the time to handle?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I've thought of you, the whole phenomenon of I call them the misbegotten masterpieces.
Mm,
Uh, there's so many films that came out and people just didn't get them for various reasons, and it took years, sometimes decades, for people to come back and watch the film, and for film historians and scholars and real film fans to say, well, this is really a good movie. And I think, there were reasons for all of these films like Wild Boys of the Road. I just think it was too difficult a story for a lot of people to write
yeah,
in 1933. It's certainly it's uplifting in a lot of ways, and it's been compared to the Grapes of Wrath and the
yeah,
Bicycle Thieves, the Vittorio
yeah.
De Sica Italian film, and a lot of people didn't get that. Um, they just, oh, this is a real downer. Like, I don't really need this. It's 1933. I'm out of work. Why do I need to, you know,
Right.
this guy whose dad gets laid off from the cement factory, I think that's like, got your job at the cement factory. That sounds so boring. Um, but anyway, so, and I also think that, oh, how should I say it? Sometimes the films are really shocking. Like a film like Safe in Hell
Mm,
that's another one that it's so dark. A lot of people now look at it as kind of a proto film noir because
yeah.
it's so dark and there's such a sad ending and everything. But Wellman was relentless about trying to be true to the story. I mean, this story, he knew it couldn't end with, her boyfriend coming back and saving her at the end or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so a lot of people had trouble with that too. I mean, a lot of people just like, oh, like, why do I need that? Um, and some of these films were so irreverent that I know Night Nurse was a successful film, but the ending of Night Nurse is really, like this. Well, I don't want to give it away, but it's something that could absolutely not have been done after the code was enforced in 1930.
Yeah. No.
We're getting away with stuff that's just outrageous. And yeah, we got away with it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so a lot of these films, I think people just didn't quite get. And Heroes for Sale is another one it's kind of a strange film. The New York Times critic at the time said, this is like two stories. This is one,
Yeah.
this guy's dealing with this drug addiction, then he goes to Chicago, and there's this other.
Right.
But it comes together really nicely in a
Yeah.
lot of different ways. And there's so much going on, and
It's such a short running time too. It's like it's like amazing how much they packed into it.
oh yeah, like no, Jack Warner couldn't stand anything that was more than about 80 minutes. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's more than about 80 minutes, I just like start cutting like start cutting people. It's just which I actually really like. I mean, these films, like, there's so much packed in and they're so intense, and you really feel that you have to watch every second of them or you'll miss something important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's like now, when they make films that are, I saw a couple of the big Academy Award films this last year, and they're so long, they're so
Yeah.
slow, and like, do you really need, all of this time to tell what you're trying to say? So um, anyway, I don't have a lot of patience as a person anyway. So like when I can get satisfaction in an hour and 15 minutes, that's great for me. So anyway.
Well, you pay tribute to a lot of his collaborators, especially the actors. I really liked how you really wrote about the way what they brought to the roles and the way in which the characters were behaving and interacting. Do you intentionally write that way to really sort of include all of the collaborators, or do you just happen to do you just happen to organically write in that kind of style?
Well, it's everyone talks about film being a collaborative art. And it's not just, I've had other people, I know in the Crawford book, people were saying, oh, you're talking about the cinematographers and the
Yeah.
directors and the costume designers and all this other stuff. And, it's a collaborative art. Everyone contributes. It's not just the director. It's not just the star. And I really want, it's an overused word, but being inclusive about, it's a whole group of people who come together. And at Warner Brothers at the time, when you're working for Daryl F. Zanuck and Jack Warner, you've got to be good and you've got to be consistent, or you're out of a job. It's a sort of thing. So these people really, all of them, added value in one way or another to the film.
Yeah.
And so I really do want to credit those people, and I really do want to show, especially like with Wellman, how he worked with Sid Hickox and other cinematographers to do a lot of the stuff that he did. And the writers, I mean, as a writer, like I've seen it where you write something wonderful and then someone just takes it and takes credit for it and everything like that. You want to, go and put a hit out on them or something. Um, but it's the fact that these are stories that start often as short stories or novels or plays or whatever, and then a scriptwriter, adapts them into a screenplay, and then the director works on it. And at Warner's at the time, almost everything was a team project. You had three or four writers, even if they were not credited, assigned to some of these films and um, stuff like that. So it's the sort of thing where just a lot of people come together to
Yeah.
bring value to the story. And, I just wanted to acknowledge that. And then the supporting actors too, like
Yeah.
Night Nurse is Stanwyck's film, but God, Joan Blondell is really great,
So good. Yeah.
and, and
Gable.
oh yeah, well no, Gable is he's wonderful, wonderful little part. It's a tiny
Yeah.
part, but he's just so good in that. So, you really have to, um, give credit where credit is due. So that's why I
Yeah.
do all that. Um, and a lot of people don't. I mean, a lot of people just stick to the subject,
Right.
and it's a shame because all these other people don't get acknowledged. So,
Right. Yeah. Well, a lot of the films, they infuse a decent amount of humor, even in Wild Boys of the Road and Heroes for Sale, and it never feels forced. It feels totally organic. Do you happen to know if did they try to lighten some of the mood at times intentionally because they were so grim, some of those films, or what? I was curious what you thought.
oh, sure, of course, and Wellman, a lot of the humor is really dark humor too. And, and I love in Heroes for Sale the guy who's the communist inventor,
Yes,
and they
and then
make
he's a capitalist.
capitalist pig, and and the irony is obvious and everything like that, but it's they're making a point. This is reinforcing a lot of the messages of the story. So
Yeah.
it's the sort of thing. That's why I think the comedy is organic. It's not forced. Like,
Right.
okay, here we have a comic relief scene, that's like stuck in here. And and Wellman does a really nice job of that. But a lot of the humor is very subversive too, and it really allows him to say things that he might not be able to say as effectively if he were just, like straight out preaching to people. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, the humor and it really does make the story and the spirit of the people, especially like Wild Boys of the Road. I mean, these people keep going, and they
Yeah.
have this indomitable spirit about them, and you really like them. Yeah, I mean, you're really with them. You're really with them in Wellman films. So,
That the moment where the son sells his car is so heartbreaking, and Wild Boys of the Road, and then he tries to make it seem like he didn't care to his father, but clearly the look on his father's face, that his father he can see through it, and then they have that little playful fighting with each other. It's I mean, just those little moments are so beautiful and subtle, and but yet so heartbreaking. They just speak volumes.
yeah, and what great acting. I mean, one
Absolutely.
is the guy who plays the dad was Grant Mitchell, who
Yeah.
is in several of Wellman's films during the time, and just like I had seen him in like he just had bit roles and things like that in all sorts of films. He's in a ton of films in the 30s and 40s, and just he is so good as the dad. I mean, he's so good, and
Unbelievable. Yeah.
he really feels that he's failed his family and
Oh, yeah.
love for the son, um, and there's a pure piece of Wellman in that where. Um, I think the son comes back from the dance. There's one scene where he comes back and you see a cake in the oven and he cuts a small piece off. Or no, I
Right.
cake in the refrigerator and he cuts a small piece off and then he puts it back in the refrigerator and you can see that he wants to eat the whole cake. And then he goes and he hears what's happened with his dad. And so
Yeah.
he puts the whole cake back and takes the small piece at the end.
Right.
And just I've got to make a sacrifice for my family.
Yeah.
It's just so touching, and it's all shown visually.
Visually. Yeah.
Wellman could do these things very simply that just cut to the heart of the story, what was going on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Just those little moments just say so much. You don't need tons of dialogue. It's just they pack with such a punch. It's incredible.
and you just show them. That's what
Yeah.
film.
Just show them.
It's the fun
Yeah.
of visual in film. It's just you really want to show them because then people remember that. It's when they're shown than when they're told. So Wellman was just so good at that. I mean, this movie, The Conquerors, that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. I have
uh,
to see that one. That one I didn't see yet.
well, there's one scene where, as I said, at the multi-generational thing, there's one scene where um, the main characters have a daughter, and she marries a guy who goes and works for the dad's bank, and the husband is kind of not very good, and he's like really messed up and just lost a huge amount of money, and the wife is pregnant, with what's going to be the grandchild for the family, and there's a scene where um, the husband is in one room in the upstairs and the wife is in the other preparing to give birth, and you just have the camera out in the hall and you look at one door and you hear a gunshot go off in the room. The husband's killed himself. And then the
Mm,
camera just tilts over to the next door and you hear the cry of a baby just being born.
mm.
And, and
Oh my God.
yeah, and it's just so simple, and
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to hire 35 extras to make that statement, It's just so simple, some of the stuff that he does.
Yeah.
It's astounding that he gets to the essence of what a
Mm.
musician is and says it very simply. And which is one reason I don't think he's appreciated as much as a director because he's so direct and can say things so beautifully and so simply. It's not a big ornate sort of thing. So
Yeah. And you wrote about the fact that he was really great at moving the camera because particularly in the early 30s with talkies, this often the camera was quite static and it was stagey sometimes, but he really knew how to move the camera. And can you talk a little bit about like how his time as an aviator really sort of influenced him about moving the camera in his films?
well, he loved the technology of motion, which
Right.
was really interesting. There's a film that he made very early on called Other Men's Women, and where it's about these two railroad engineers. And that's like a very fluid film, it's a very dynamic film. Yeah, no, he was an aviator. Like he made 11 films during his career, only one, unfortunately, during the pre-code period about aviation. And
Mm,
he loved aviation. He loved the whole idea of, flying and, really risking your life and doing these things. And it was a glorious experience. Um, and, he loved things to be kept moving.
moving. Yeah.
That's the way it should be. I mean, the characters are usually moving in um, films a lot. I mean, and he kept his camera moving. And he supposedly also he takes credit. I mean, King Vidor also takes credit for this too. I don't know who actually was the one, but like inventing the more fluid microphone. That originally in films, like in the early talkies, they had the microphone hidden in the vase of flowers or whatever. and everybody had to
Yeah.
stand around the base and talk. And Wellman uh, put a microphone on a fishing pole or a fishing rod and stuck it over the and so and then but it was about the same time that King Vidor did something very similar in a
Right.
film called Hallelujah. Um, and so they both take credit for it. I don't know which one actually gets credit or whether either of them gets credit for that, but no, he really believed in stuff, and he loved to show you machines in motion. Like this movie, Central Airport, just as is really great stunt flying. They hired this guy who was like um, the Laurence Olivier of stunt flyers or whatever, who's the very um, and there's all this great flying, the early 1930s planes, commercial planes. There's all this great stunt flying in it. And he just loved to do these,
Yeah.
of course, before the pre-code period, he did Wings, which was the great
Yeah.
film about World War One aviators. So, yeah, he loved motion. He just
Right.
absolutely loved motion. And he was like kind of a very, antsy type of guy. He always wanted to keep moving and do things. And, he wasn't someone who was just kind of mellow and kind of like to kind of sit and contemplate the eternal questions or whatever.
What made you decide to put that scene from Public Enemy on the cover with Cagney there?
Well, that was just a thing with about three or four choices with the designer. It does have action to it. As I said, it's a punchy cover.
Yeah.
Um, it um, it it was just one that showed like the grittiness and there were several. There were about four or five options that we had, and I just felt this was the best one. That it and it just showed well, that's another thing we really haven't talked about is Cagney's great performance in Public Enemy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That changed. I was reading about some film scholar, British film scholar, was just saying that this really changed film acting. That he just this character is such a psychopath, and but the thing about Cagney is that he could make really evil people compelling and interesting.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, and you see this in his various gangster films. And, unfortunately, he was like typecast as gangsters. And I think he would have loved to have, well, he did play a wide variety of roles,
Yeah.
he played a lot of gangster roles.
He's most known for that. Yeah.
But he did it so well. And his
Yeah.
characters are so compelling. I mean, you're just riveted by them. You're just pulled into them. And what's going on with this guy? And
Mm.
so I really so that's why it was an action, it was an action scene in the cover rather than just someone laying,
Right.
uh, like having a more static scene. So that's why that was on the cover.
What, for people who are not familiar with Wellman, where do you think they should start? What are some of the films they should start with?
Well, from this period, it depends if you want to go into Wellman totally.
Yeah,
Uh,
from this period. Yeah.
okay, well, from this period, I would say Wild Boys of the Road,
Yeah, for sure.
um, Heroes for Sale. Well, there's six that I would like in chronological order: Public Enemy, Night Nurse, Safe in Hell, um, Heroes for Sale, Midnight Mary, and uh, Wild Boys of the Road. I think are
Mm.
just great movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are a lot that, as I said, Central Airport is very hard to get. Though I did see that there's Warner Archive has put out a DVD recently,
Oh,
which is just a very underrated film with Richard Barthelmess, who's the star of Heroes for Sale 2. Um, as a disgraced aviator who's trying to prove his worth, and just wonderful action scenes, wonderful love story. Um, and it's very pre-code, and it was really censored for many years because of some of the elements that you would see in pre-code that were then, taken out of or not allowed to be in films afterwards. But I certainly like that. I mean, I could go on. Frisco Jenny, I think, is a really interesting film.
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd say the six that I mentioned, if you want to start, and a good place to start is that Forbidden Hollywood set,
Yeah.
six Wellman films in there. There's also a very good documentary about Wellman that it's on the disc as an extra about Wellman that Turner Classic Movies made, I think, in 1996 or 97. And the thing that's interesting is that's one of the things about the film is like it's 90 minutes on Wellman, and there's only about 8 minutes on the pre-code. And that's
Mm,
1/4 of his films were made during that time.
wow.
And they talked about Public Enemy for a bit, and then just a tiny bit on Wild Boys of the Road, and then they just moved on. And
Wow. Huh.
it's yeah, and that's all they said about it. And but um, in their defense, I mean, I don't think movies like Safe in Hell were even available at that point. I mean, they had not been. I think it was released in DVD in 2009, something like that. But that's one of the sad things about this period is that a lot of people are discovering these films, like now, but they've been they were suppressed, and then people
Yeah.
knew about them, and then people started looking around and hearing about them, and oh God, how do I see this film? And it wasn't until the 90s when Turner Classic Movies came along that a lot of these films actually got shown on television. And so it's like if you're a film scholar and you've been raised on these, like late 30s, 40s, 50s type films. There's this whole treasure trove of early 30s films that are
Yeah. Absolutely.
really, so many of them are worth seeing. So anyway, that's what I would recommend.
No, those are my favorites as well. The once again, the book is called Assembly Line: A Tour: The Pre-Code Films of William Wellman. If people want to get the book, David, where do you suggest they go?
Well, it's available on Amazon. There's also a lower cost Kindle copy. It's available on barnesandnoble.com, and it's available through the publisher, McFarland and Company in Jefferson, North Carolina. It's a small, kind of semi-academic press, but they do a lot of more popular titles too. So anyway, it's available in those three places. I wish it were in every bookstore, but it isn't. So
But
anyway,
it's
um,
easy to get at least.
yeah, no, it's really
Yeah.
easy to get, and Amazon does they really deliver stuff really like really quickly. So
Yeah.
so that's where they can get it.
Great. Fantastic. Well, once again, highly recommend the book because I thoroughly enjoyed it. And there's I didn't get to see all the films, but there's still like the Central Airport. Like I still have to see some of the Conqueror that you mentioned. I have to see, but I was able to see more of them than I had seen previously. And like Safe in Hell, I hadn't seen in Frisco Jenny. And I was funny when I was watching those two. I realized they in both films, Donald Cook, the women have these secrets that they can't tell him, and it's so I don't want to give too much away, but I thought, oh, that's interesting that they use. That must have been intentional that they used Donald Cook for both of those very similar kind of scenarios and parts.
Well, yeah, he was an interesting actor. He was also the one who played the weak son-in-law in The Conquerors, the one who shoots him.
Oh,
The
oh
moment
wow,
the child is,
okay,
you know.
oh wow, okay,
No, he was a really interesting actor. Wellman used him, but
yeah,
he's a Broadway actor who could be quite good in some of the films. So,
yeah.
so anyway, but well, Once again, Robert, I really appreciated the chance to come on
Yeah.
and rattle on about my passions about old films. So anyway,
No, it was great. It was great to have you, and thanks so much for coming on. And once again, highly recommend Assembly Line, a tour of the pre-code films of William Wellman. So, David, thank you again, and I'm sure you'll come again sometime down the road, and we'll talk about some other film subject.
in fact, I have another book coming
Oh,
out.
another book. Okay,
I'll make sure you get a copy.
okay, great.
I'll
Can you
make sure.
mention what it is now, or not yet? Do you not want to mention it yet?
It's actually on Amazon. It's available for pre-order on Amazon. I'm going back to film noir, and I'm going to
Oh,
write. It's James Mason in film noir.
oh, wow. Okay.
It's really interesting because I think he's a major figure who, once again, has not been appreciated. I mean, film noir is one of these things when you talk about the major names, you talk about Bogart or Robert Mitchum or Barbara Stanwyck, but Mason did noir in England and
Yeah,
then and did several really, really interesting films
that's true. Yeah.
and um, and some are films that we wouldn't normally think of as noir, but they have very strong noirish elements in them that are all associated with the Mason characters.
Mm.
Uh, he's been one of my favorite actors since I've been about 15 years old. So
Oh, yeah. He's wonderful.
delighted to write a book about him. So anyway, that's
Okay,
coming.
well, I look forward to that. So once again, thanks so much, and those of you watching at home, thanks for watching, and we will see you all in the next episode.
Thank you.